everyone. Thanks for coming in these weird times. You know, when I think of resistance, I often go back to my first close encounter with corporate America. I was 1986, I was in my mid-20s, and I stopped to visit some old friends from high school for 10 days in Chicago and stayed for 6 months. We'd all had a pretty rotten winter and we're enjoying the hell out of each other's company. So one friend was an up-and-coming humor writer, one was in a popular Chicago band. They were called Big Black, if anybody remembers them. I was doing the poetry performance thing. We were a pretty lively group. But you know, even couch surfers have to pay bills. So I had to figure out a way to come up with some cash, as they said in Chicago at the time. And being pretty good at computer stuff, even in the mid-'80s, I just thought I might as well try my hand at temporary office work. Before I knew it, I was sucked into the bowels of AT&T at 101 North Wacker, found myself sitting in a cubicle in a thrift store shirt and tie and my best charming smile, designing the first electronic maps they had for all their cables and stations in 10 central states for very little money, by the way. You know, it was a convenient way to bring home the bacon. But I felt like a underground anarchist or pirate spy, which I kind of was, going to punk shows and gay clubs in the evening and coming in bright and chipper every morning. They were a pretty square group over there. Sometimes I'd have Band-Aids on several of my fingertips to hide the nail polish. I mean, who ever paints them all, you know? And when they asked, I told them I was learning to play the harp, which they believed. Meanwhile, I was doing like protection ceremonies and empowerment spells in my cubicle, in the restrooms, in the break room, embedding strange symbols in the maps, and writing poems about how Looney Tunes the place really was. Anyway, I'd never made it through an infernal summer of temp work in Chicago without some form of therapy, and an odd one at that. And it was through this therapy that I became sole witness to a really beautiful phenomenon. Witness. This is a glimpse of the cogs, pure physics in brilliance. I dragged myself home from the trenches 5 days weekly, mashed in the broiling L with gobs of nervous yuppies trapped for God knows how long without their climate control, fainting and having heart attacks right and left. Then up to Dave and Lisa's place, where I'd strip off the sticky monkey skin and usually head out near naked to their second floor balcony for at least an hour, where I would blow some bubbles. The balcony looked over a nice neighborhoody intersection near Lincoln and Belmont, which I inflicted every afternoon for months with clouds of annoying little opalescent soap bubbles, to the distraction of many, the sure pleasure of a few, and the irritation of several in particular. They are, you have to admit, delightful things, those cute little bubbles, feel free. But I'm at a loss to explain the extent of my delight at that time. I could, you know, bask in the late afternoon heat, hyperventilate a lot, and watch my little creations drift off into traffic. Anyway, one afternoon in July, and here's the crux, the most mind-blowing storm of the summer ripped through town. I mean, you ever seen a Chicago summer storm? Because they are the shit. Driving rain for hours, branches blowing off trees, trees blowing over, floods amuck, Earthquake, thunder, wild lightning everywhere, all over the sky every few seconds at some points, blowing power lines, smashing chimneys, sirens, sudden bolts, and rain, rain, rain. I stood watching it all from the balcony, pure storm glory. About an hour into it, the wind died down. The rain, thick as rice, was blotting out the street. Could barely see the street. I figured I might just blow some bubbles. I wondered actually how far they'd make it into the grind, water pouring down like sand. Figured maybe an inch, their average diameter. So I blew a big blast of about 40 bubbles into the grind, yes, heavy as buckshot, and watched them drift off into it, calm as can be, in barely a breeze, absolutely undisturbed, even their formation undisturbed, not even descending, drifting into that wall of rain, one of the hardest rains I'd ever seen, as if it were not there at all. True story. And true physics. So I say, be as bubbles in the rain, my true hearts. The storm will pass.
Sinking into my mountain leg. Sorry, I can start that again. Sinking into my mountain legs. Then I see that I am a mountain bigger and more strange. Say goodbye to those younger ways. Say goodbye to how I banged around and learned a bunch of things. The mountain has a slower pace. The mountain's here and I remember mountain when I go astray. We'd like to invite anyone that would like to do a bubble dance with us. The floor is open for bubble dancing. Ain't no use in those future games. Ain't no use to think that anything will ever be the same. I'd rather stay here in this frame, breathe the air and feel the dance of life, blood moving through my veins. A warning sign when things get strange. Then my mountain legs drop down to feel my roots in this here place. Sinking into my mountain legs. Then I see that I